Here are 5 mistakes that I personally made before moving to Colombia from the UK. Now the first one, the main one, was the situation around a visa. So I knew beforehand that I could enter Colombia on my tourist permit for up to 90 days, but for some reason I thought that because I had a one-way ticket, because I was deciding to move here, because I was going to be here for a long time, so before I even arrived in Colombia, I applied for the digital nomad visa. I kept on getting rejected, I kept on reapplying. I entered Colombia on my tourist permit, but after arriving I kept on applying, I kept on getting rejected, because basically if you are a single male who's living in Medellín or is planning to live in Medellín and you're from a developed country, they just instantly decline you for a digital nomad visa, or they don't actually decline you, they just say reapply because blah 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 blah. So that visa is impossible to get. That's kind of a different story for another video, but basically I wasted a lot of time, energy, attention and money trying to get this digital nomad visa. I think I applied 4 times in total, and in hindsight I just didn't need it. You can stay in Colombia for up to 90 days and you can extend that tourist permit for up to 180 days per calendar year, so you can basically spend half a year here, 6 months here without a visa. And a lot of people do this, and I just didn't do my research beforehand. So that was the first big mistake I made. I didn't do my research beforehand when it came to the visas, and it caused me a lot of stress, anxiety. I kept on getting declined. I was unsure if I was going to have to go back to the UK, blah 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 blah, and that would have just been fixed and solved if I had done my research beforehand and I was more educated about the whole process. So that's a big piece of advice I have, and you can learn from the mistakes of me. So you can basically live in Colombia for 6 months on the tourist permit if you are lucky enough to be from one of the countries that can do the tourist permit. So that's the first thing. Now the second one are Colombian tax laws. So I kind of learnt this quite soon after I arrived, so maybe 2 or 3 weeks after I arrived, and that is basically if you spend over 182 days in Colombia, so 183 days or over, in a rolling 365-day period, you are considered a Colombian tax resident. So again, stupidly, I didn't do enough research. I didn't really know about this until after I arrived in Colombia and I spoke to a Colombian accountant. But this is really important because if you don't know about this and you spend a whole year in Colombia, not only might you overstay your tourist permit, but you also might become a Colombian tax resident, which means that you have to pay Colombian taxes. You can't use a property purchase for a visa, blah, 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 blah. So you just don't really want to be in the position where you accidentally become a tax resident here. And so this is not legal advice or financial advice, but this is just based on my experience. This is one of the mistakes that I made. And so if you are thinking about coming to Colombia to live or spending a significant amount of time here, make sure you're up to date on Colombian's tax laws. That doesn't mean you necessarily need to kind of trawl through Google and ChatGPT for hours. You could just pay a little bit of money and speak to a Colombian accountant on Zoom, and they'll be able to educate you on the process. And it's not going to cost you much. It'll probably cost you £40 or $50, but it's money well spent. Okay, then the third thing, I didn't bring enough toiletries. So I'd been to Colombia a few times before I decided to move here, so I knew that toiletries are difficult to get, they're kind of expensive. But that being said, I still didn't buy enough. I still found I ran out after a few months of being here, and then when my mum came to visit me, I had to get her to bring some toiletries over. So not the end of the world, it's a complete first world problem. But in hindsight, if I was doing things differently, I would bring more toiletries. Sun cream, body cream, moisturizers, stuff like that is really expensive here. So I'll just give you a really quick example which illustrates my point perfectly. So I wear contact lenses, and in the UK you can buy a half-litre bottle of contact lens solution for about £1, okay, £1, and about 5,000 pesos. And so obviously I didn't bring enough. So here I went to the pharmacy, I found a small bottle of contact lens solution. It was 65 millilitres and it was £7. £7 for a tiny bottle of contact lens solution. And that same thing is just infinitely cheaper in the UK. So stuff like that is stupidly more expensive here. Obviously you're not going to financially bankrupt yourself by buying contact lens solution, but it's really annoying paying 1,000% more for a stupid product. That's not really life-changing and it's just basically an essential. So yeah, that's the third mistake I made. I didn't bring enough toiletries. So if I was doing this all again, I would bring more toiletries with me. Although to be honest, I didn't really have that much more room in my suitcase. So in hindsight, I'm not really sure if I would have been able to bring more toiletries in the first place. But yeah, you get what I mean. Okay, now the fourth thing. Like most people, I booked my first month here on Airbnb for general ease. I booked it beforehand when I was in the UK, so I kind of knew that I'd have somewhere to live at least for the first month. It would be sorted, it was all good, and that was all fine. That turned out well, but I hadn't actually been to or visited the specific neighborhood in Envigado where the Airbnb was. I kind of knew roughly where it was, but I hadn't actually visited there in person, and I didn't really do enough research online about this specific neighborhood, and it turned out to be kind of a lesser income neighborhood than I thought it would be, more of a barrio popular as they call it here. So there was a lot of noise, people blaring music all the time, people kind of doing drugs in the streets sometimes, not all the time. And so in hindsight, I would have preferred a slightly more quiet neighborhood for my first month here. But that being said, I actually really enjoyed immersing myself in the Colombian culture here, staying somewhere where I wouldn't normally stay, basically mixing only with locals. I didn't really see any gringos or any tourists tourists in this area. So in hindsight, it kind of turned out for the best in the end. But if I'm being honest, I really should have done my research more about this neighborhood to decide if it was right for me. So the neighborhood is called Alto de Misael in Envigado, and it's absolutely fine, but I just didn't really do enough research at the time. So that's just a tip for your first month of staying here. I would highly recommend that you stay somewhere where you have visited in person before. Then it takes all of the guesswork out, and you basically won't get any nasty surprises when you arrive. So the fifth and final point, this is a dog specific one because I have a pet pug. I brought her over here from London, the UK, and there are certain things like these yak milk chews which are super popular in the UK and the US. I know lots of people who have dogs who use them a lot. They're super popular. They get tens of thousands of reviews on Google, but you know what? You just cannot buy them here. No one sells them. If you want to get them imported from the US, the cost of the good is about $10 and you'd have to pay about $50 import duty, which is just insane, and I would never do that. So yeah, there are some kind of highly specific items which you just can't buy here. And to be honest with you, until you actually move here and live here, you're never really going to know that they don't sell them here. So I actually brought a couple with me, but of course they ran out after a month or two. So basically highly specific things which you may use every day for your pet, or maybe it's like a health product, or maybe it's a supplement. If you can, check before you come to Colombia that you can actually buy it here and you don't have to pay silly money to get it. Because sometimes online people will say you can buy this in Colombia and it gets delivered on Amazon, but then you find out that you have to end up paying $20, $30 just delivery fee for a $5 good, which doesn't really make any sense, and I don't like doing that. So yeah, that fifth point is kind of inevitable. You're not really going to know too much about that until you move here, but that's one annoying thing. These dog yak chews, I've spent so much time trying to find these in Medellín and just simply can't, either online or in person. So yeah, those are the 5 mistakes I personally made before moving to Medellín, Colombia from London, UK. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.